Hi, I'm Josh Ibarra, and this is my Module 10 assignment for AEP 880, dealing with bullying and the articles that we had to read. As far as a summary of the assigned articles, I'm going to try and keep this as straight as possible. My mind is kind of mixed between the 8 articles that I've read for this assignment. So anyway, the first one, 3 essential priorities of school principals. In this article, it talked about emphasizing a caring and inclusive school environment, equip staff and faculty to embrace their leadership roles, and collaborate with your community. These are things that I kind of saw were pretty common throughout most of these articles, especially the idea of collaborating with your community. But I remember, I think it was this article, I can't quite remember. I've got some notes here, but emphasizing caring, or emphasize a caring and inclusive school environment. Um, just making sure that your school is a safe place and a place where kids can feel comfortable. In the classroom, in the hallways, locker rooms are a big thing. I'm a coach, I'm a weights instructor, and so the locker room is a big area of concern. I know for our current principal, equipping staff and faculty to embrace their leadership roles. One of these articles, I can't remember if it's this one or not. Like I said, my head is just so crazy with all these articles, but I know one of them talked about you can't the principal can't do it all himself. We can't rely on this like top down method anymore. That especially with bullying, we've got to have everybody on board and everybody has to be doing their job. Our principal relies on us to be in the hallways between classes. If we're not, doing anything, say our planned period, we don't have anything going on. If we can walk through the halls, monitor the halls, weights and PE teachers, we're told we need to be up in the locker rooms, make sure there's nothing going on there, and anything that happens needs to be reported right away. So that idea of not just having this top-down hierarchy is something that I just remember being in part of or being in one of these articles, and that kind of goes along with that equipment your staff and faculty to embrace their leadership roles. Also, the idea of training. We've had training the last couple of years on bullying and how to deal with bullying and what bullying is. It's something that we do every year at the beginning of the year. We have some videos we watch. Our superintendent comes in and talks to us. So, it's a very important subject here. Collaborate with your community. Once again, very common theme throughout most of these articles is making sure they understand what bullying is and what your stance is on bullying and how they can help prevent it, whether it be at home or in the community. If they see it, they need to report it. We have that here. The problem is a lot of times it'll happen at home, whether it's cyberbullying or whatever, and they'll want the principal to do something about it. Well, his hands are tied if it's happening outside of school. Yes, he can come to school and he can tell us to be watching for that, between those particular kids. So hopefully we can prevent it from happening at school. But as far as, being able to take care of it outside of the school building, he can't do anything. So if that happens, your community needs to know that. And he tells the parents that at the parent, the open house at the beginning of the year. And that is something that they either need to talk to that kid's parents, or they need to go to the law if it's bad enough, or whatever the case. But it is something that the community has to be a part of. The second article, how feeling respected transforms a student's relationship to school. I'm going to try and look at some of these articles. I had to print some of them off. But talking about empathy, once again, another very common theme throughout a lot of these articles. This article really talked about, understanding and building relationships, and I think this has been pretty common throughout this course. Building relationships with your students, building relationships with the community as well and the staff, understanding where these kids are coming from. Just speaking from my own experience, I was bullied as a kid in grade school, and one of the kids that bullied me ended up being one of my best friends in high school. But as a kid, I didn't understand it, but I just kind of shook it off, and didn't let him see that it bothered me. I was able to cope with it that way. As I got older, I realized the reason he did that was he had older brothers and sisters that bullied him and cousins that bullied him at home. And so then he would come to school and take it out on other people. So now as a teacher, I see, I know that if this is maybe he's a younger sibling of some, he has older brothers, older sisters, whatever, and he's coming to school and doing that, if I know that kid's family and I know that they're a fairly ornery family or whatever you want to call it, I may see that that's happening at home, and he may not even realize that this is a wrong thing. That what he is doing is bullying. He just sees it as that's what my brothers and sisters and cousins and everybody else do. So I just kind of see it as having fun or playing or whatever. But having that empathy and understanding of what they're going through. It also talked about reducing suspensions. I know it talked a lot about in California, and I'd read something else about California score, maybe one of the videos we watched in one of the previous assignments. But the idea of the idea that suspensions aren't necessarily doing the job. A lot of these kids may not have very strong home life anyway, so suspending them doesn't do them any good. They're going home and their parents don't care. In some situations, their parents aren't there in some situations. Other times you may suspend them, they go home and their parents may be very abusive. And so by suspending, and I've said this about certain kids too, if I go out and I just lay into a kid, I know that his dad may really lay into him. And so I've got to understand that there's a difference between certain kids. Some need it, some don't. But when it comes to suspensions, the stats or the data talked about, they're noticing that kids who are suspended a lot of times have a higher dropout rate and misbehave a lot. And I've seen it here with certain teachers who don't want to show respect to kids, but in return, they want respect from the kids. And it doesn't work that way. You have too many kids who you've got to earn their trust. I mean, they haven't had anybody they could trust their whole life. What makes you think that they're going to trust you? And a lot of this, also a lot of the statistics that they showed dealt with race, and how African Americans and Latino Americans are maybe treated differently than white Americans. So just a very interesting article. And it's unfortunate if all that stuff is real and true, and I imagine it is because it was in this article. It was the stats were there, the statistics and the data. So, but anyway, building relationships. Once again, having that empathy, understanding where people are coming from. The next one, creating a warm and inclusive classroom environment, planning for all children to feel welcome. Once again, I'm digging through my articles here. I'm trying to remember which ones these are. But anyway, strategies for improving classroom environment, strategies for making students feel connected, increasing student involvement. These are all very important. I've gone to a non-traditional classroom setting here this year as far as no desks, having tables, I have a couch, just making these kids maybe feel a little more comfortable, making them want to work a little bit. Desks can be uncomfortable, a little rigid. Plus, I just like the way it forces these kids and to be a group. You may have 3 to 4 kids at a table or whatever, and they're constantly talking. They may be talking about nonsense, but they're working and talking, or they may be talking about their assignments. So, I've liked this makeup. Myself and another teacher across the hall has also done this, and we both love it. But that's just one way I've tried to improve my classroom environment. Now, as far as the bullying side of things, making sure they understand, and this was, once again, I don't know which article, but they talked about setting those rules early, letting them know those first couple of days of school that, hey, this kind of stuff isn't allowed. You can't say this, you can't do this, yada, yada, yada. But if kids are comfortable and kids respect each other, peer to peer, you can prevent a lot of this from happening. I think prevention is kind of the undertone of all of these articles for sure. The next one, strategies for building a productive and positive learning environment. So make learning relevant, develop a code of conduct, employ a positive actions curriculum, help students develop intrinsic motivation, reinforce positive behaviors, always respond with positivity. As a coach, sometimes this stuff is hard, but I've been really trying these last couple years to do number 6 there as far as always respond with positivity as much as possible. if you need to get them to do something or understand something, instead of just jumping all over their backside, do something, make it to where it challenges them, or something to that extent. Just get through to them more than just chewing on them. As far as the article is concerned, all these points are extremely good and important. And, you know, as far as I can remember being in grade school, when I read this, I thought it was awesome that they talked about a positive actions curriculum. We used to have a positive action thing in grade school. We had like this mascot. It was called Positive Pat, and we had a song that we'd have these um, assemblies. We'd have to sing this song. It was all about positive actions and this and that. And so, this article kind of brought those memories back up. And maybe that's something that needs to happen more often now. I don't know if we've gotten away from that at the grade school level or whatever, but just being positive and teaching kids that it's okay to be positive with each other. Okay, my articles, I'm going to go quick through this because I'm running out of time on Screencast-O-Matic, but bullying prevention in public schools, um, and new ways to stop bullying. So all these articles are dealing with prevention. Like I said, instead of intervention, prevent it early. Talking about students that are most at risk, policy recommendations. It gave a good list of that stuff. I don't think I have these here with me, but I remember it had a list for recommendations and classroom performance, and the students most at risk. The other one, new ways to stop bullying. It's not just the bully and the bullied, but the kids who have to pick a side. I remember that being a very, very big point in here about how they felt felt bad for these kids. You have a kid that's a bully and you have a kid that's being bullied. Well, then you have those peers that are around him. You either step up for that kid or you step in on the side for this bully. And it's a hard choice for kids to have to make. I think there's three sides to bullying, and that third side is not talked about so much. So it was kind of neat to see that in this article and hear their perspective on it. Okay, how to respond when students use hate speech. Another good article. It gave reasons as to why they use hate speech. It also talked about how to curb hate speech, and then diving into it, which I thought was really interesting because it talked about bringing, reasons why. What's the good reason why for this? What's the bad reason why? And I thought that was kind of interesting, that bigotry could be something that they're finding a good reason for using that bigotry, but then going in and explaining how something good could lead to something bad. And then the last one was successful community efforts to prevent bullying. Obviously, getting the community involved. Talked about first you got to go and get the parents involved. Then next, get community involved in the school, whether it's helping pay for bullying prevention or whatever. And then get the school involved in the community. So there's that, back and forth there. So, another really good article. I thought it was, pretty interesting to hear their methods. Okay, the summary of the data. This was all what was put in our module. I found it pretty interesting how high these numbers are as far as like name calling and teasing. I really thought that the emails or blogging would be higher, and texting and that kind of stuff, because we feel like here that the cyberbullying is what is the real problem anymore. It's not the face-to-face stuff. And then obviously where it occurs: classrooms, hallways, and lockers, and cafeteria, gym, PE class. I mean, this is all stuff that we are all very familiar with if we've been teachers or just students. Okay, missing procedures and policies. Preventative measures, first day of school. Get that out. Make sure they understand what is bullying, what is considered bullying. Because some kids, like I said, they may not understand what it is. Hall and locker room presence. Between classes, our teachers, we're supposed to be in the hallways, making sure that we are there, they see us, so on and so forth. If we hear something, we take care of it immediately. And that's the next one, acting immediately. Don't let it fester and build up. Relationship building, sorry. And that's between staff and students. And student to student is what I mean by that, but also between our staff and students. Make sure that you understand where they're coming from. Make sure they understand where each other are coming from, and make sure that this isn't something you don't just all of a sudden smash a kid for bullying the first time. Maybe you make him understand why it is wrong and what the issue is. Here are my references. I'm sorry I kind of screamed through that, but I literally have 10 seconds left before they shut me off. So thanks for listening, and one more assignment left. Yay.